Yeah, y'all, it's my birthday today. And I'm still out here in Santa Monica, but I'll leave probably tonight. I'll get out of here tonight. You know, it was cool because, right, when I've been here for like a week in Santa Monica, and it was like cloudy the whole time. Clouds everywhere. I thought it was gonna rain, but it never rained. It was like fucking with me. I was like, what the fuck's going on? This shit's gonna rain on me. I'm sleeping outside still. I'm like, what the hell? And yesterday around 2 o'clock. That's when like everything cleared up, and I was like, "Oh yeah, my birthday tomorrow is gonna be a good day," and it is. The sun's out. I would say guns are out, but I'm like looking nice. So I can get some subscribers and get some help. A little bit of help, a little bit of you know some green. You know, so I can get around better. I still have to figure out how to get my identification and shit. I'll figure that out now after today. I'll have to run and find some people, places. If I can get a couple dollars today, I'll go to Little Tokyo and get me a little, katana again. One of the wooden ones. And I got more videos coming out on my other channel today. I'm glad that it's like this now. Cause like I'm telling y'all, like it was cold for the past couple days. I was like, it better not be raining for my birthday. Better be a clear sky and sun out, and that's what it is. 26. I'm only getting older, so like you gotta heed calls to what I fucking need. And subscribers, I know you can only do so much. You guys are, and let me apologize to you guys for a little bit. When I make these videos and shit, and I'm going off and I'm getting mad and shit, it's not at you, it's other people. You know, People who could see these videos and could help me out, and they just don't. You know, it's not your fault that I'm doing this. You actually want to see me do better. This is a journey now. This ain't, gonna happen overnight, But at the same time, I know what the difference between patience and waste of time. Wasting time is when I feel, as a person in question, that my time is being wasted by somebody else. Somebody's trying to use me towards their ends and not towards mine. My goal is to have a house one day, have cars, have land, have you know people come back into my life. But right now I need money and bitches. I need a job that can pay, like, well, YouTube's gonna pay me one day. I don't know when, but it'll happen eventually. I've only been on YouTube for a year, on my other channel, and then this channel, it's going on like 8 months. Well, 9 months now, I guess, actually. But I'll keep doing this, I'll let you know what I'm doing. I try to do interesting shit on this channel, let you know. I've been posting food videos. I'll keep doing that too. That shit's funny and fun. Um, so I'll do that. And then, if I ever do meet any of these bitches that I have, planned to fuck around with, um, man, I ain't gonna talk about what we did because, I don't know. They don't want that, you know. I feel like they wouldn't want that. So our, experience together will be our experience together. And, it's none of y'all's business. It's none of y'all's business what another man does with a woman. And especially me when I'm not fucking with children. I'm trying to fuck with experienced women, who act like children. Because women do act like children. That part is definitely true. Because if they didn't, they would know how to work with people a little better. But younger guys are kind of like girls too, as when they fuck around. they start acting like the women they fuck around with. And then I'm like, you ain't supposed to be staring at my dick. You're supposed to be helping me out. You know, judging a guy like that, you know, it gets people laughing and shit, I guess, but it's not that funny because there's nothing being done to help towards my ends. You have to be a real animal about things sometimes. That's why I am more mature than other people. Always have been. But people play games with my dick. And then, there's other people who actually are more mature than me and who are like, come on, don't even try to act mature because if you do that, then, you make a situation dry. And I'm like, that's true, but, some bitches like dryness and other bitches don't. And I do know that, and I'm like, and that's why I have Darius the Green Angel in this channel too. I try to, but I'm a little more dry here, telling you what's going on in my life. Try to make some funds real quick and have fun today the best I can. Living outside like a vagrant, vagabond, whatever you might want to call it. But this is the journey, In like 2-3 years, I won't be living like this. That's the whole, point of this. You know, gotta meet the right people who want to like play games right. Ghosts don't matter here. Spirits don't matter here either. We care about, getting our shit right, our money, our things. Women, when it comes to that, you gotta find my dick. I told you. You have to first focus on me, focus on my dick. Then, you know, get a little more curious because the focus is there, right? If you're focused on my dick, then you're like, I wonder what, and you're focused on a part of me. So then come touch me then. You don't have anything to worry about. I ain't gonna hurt you. Touching me, there's nothing you can do to hurt me. You bitches think, other things. You ain't gonna just pull a gun on me because, I mean, that's the only way, but you shouldn't do shit like that. I'm not a guy that does shit like that. I leave people the fuck alone. I'm sitting right here and people are walking by minding their own business, you know, and that's every day. I don't fucking go and do all that extra stuff. I'm not a hot boy like that. They can keep doing that, but I ain't gonna do that. There's no need for it. And then, sensualness is long sex, long lasting sex. But we have to kind of work towards it too. You gotta like know that you have to focus, touch, and then, things can happen. An experience. I'm about creating experiences here, not just interesting moments that I've been having for the past 26 years of my life. You know, that shit is, the same fucking thing. I'm not into that. And people, might get dumb because they know some things about my other channel, right? That I'm a tourist. That don't mean that. It means we do what we love to do, no matter what anybody else might think or other things, but we ain't gonna also, cause conflicts. We ain't gonna cause problems. Some of us cause problems more than others, and I'm not one causing problems. People are causing problems for me by not listening. You have to listen to people to get shit moving. Lower animals don't listen and shit. That's why I call them children. Other, animals do listen, but then they only listen unless it's, you know, more real. See, right now, like I told you, I'm trying to have fun and make money. There's people like that in America who made their life, from nothing and turn themselves into something great. And they do that shit. I'm no different. You people have to like kind of heed calls and do what you're fucking told. It's not, me being any type of way, You might be like, that's a dick, Yeah, I have a dick. Of course I'm a dick. Why would you think I'm not? You must be a dumb bitch. That's the truth. You know, I have a dick, so I'm a dick. and I'm a dictator because I need you to focus on my dick, not other dick. We don't talk about that here. You know, that doesn't get talked about here. They talk about themselves. We don't talk about them, because I'm a real man, not, or I'm a real animal, because I'm still sleeping outside, y'all. I can't say that yet, you know. I have to say, that I'm a real animal, hopping around, you know, trying to fuck around with the right types that I see, you know. And whatever sticks, sticks, and whatever don't. And that's for things, people, and man, even places too. If I don't like a place, I'll never fucking go back to. If there's a fucking, bitch that I want to fuck around with, we fuck around, she lacks the fucking part. She ain't supposed to lack anything. Especially if she's, a certain type of woman, of certain age and shit. She is not. I come to find out that women are their most beautiful by like 35 to 40. For somebody like me, and I'm like, don't do that to yourself, bitch. Don't run away from this. Because we're only getting older. Like today, I turned 26. You have to heed calls and not be fucking weak. Because I never tell, and that's the thing. Some girls when they see a slow guy, they think, oh, he's gonna try to do this and do that, and it's confinement, and I won't be able to. It's not like that. And maybe it is like that, but it's only like that for a limited amount of time because I perform acts of cool. Do you know what that means? That means I have other people to see too, and it ain't just you. So I ain't gonna stick around you forever. You know, you're gonna have to want to stick around, and not just those bitches, but my fans are gonna want to have to stick around too, because I know it's like the same old shit all the time, but it ain't. You know, Shit gets better. I try to let you know when something changes, a big change happens. Those haven't quite come yet. Today is my birthday. That's why I make this video. But gotta keep moving, keep looking for things, keep looking for people. The job opportunities are hard to find because in America you need identification to have a job. I don't have that. You know, I could tell you everything about me. I was born here. My parents are these two people. I, my social security, I could tell you all that information. I'm not a fucking liar. But then people, those things, rules exist because people do lie about things. And I understand that. And, it's just a really hard time for me right now because I don't know where my money's coming from or any of that. Subscribers are, kind of my blessing. You know, People don't get it like that. When other people on YouTube say that shit, it ain't like when it's me. Because, like, it's a way of me living and getting food and getting clothes. For them, it's about them boosting their egos and other things. You know, they just don't get it. You know, That's why I kind of wouldn't listen to them either. I would, about how to make my videos better if they wanted to help me out, but that's about as far as it goes. Cause I like to be Darius, and Darius is, an asshole. Darius is, a dick. Darius can also be a smartass, but Darius ain't no pussy like people think. He likes to eat it, but it has to be mine's ate first. You have to eat my dick first. Then it's that. That's called tough love. That's called, you gotta just do it, And in older women, I feel like they expect younger men to just, eat that out first. And I'm like, well, how does that make sense, for somebody like me? You're kind of putting me in a box, girls. I don't box you in like that. I do, but not like that. You know, that's gonna be my, that's gonna help me have fun. For real though. Not on some bullshit. This year I'm trying to, have fun. 26 is gonna be fun. That's the intentions I set. You know, more money, more bitches that I like, not that fucking bullshit that I had to deal with the other days. Um, like, and attracting other people is fine, but like when I come across somebody who, god damn, this is fucked up. Somebody who's not as attractive, and they, like me, then I'm like, oh my god, this, like, I don't need that anymore either. I've had that a lot too. I need to just fuck around with the bitches that I like. And we ain't gonna stay around each other if we don't like each other. What I'm saying is we ain't gonna get past, a Facebook friend relationship, you know, that type of relationship, and that's fine. Then there's other girls who might want to do more than that. You'll have to stick around, and this is not a place that is, easy to heed calls to because, like I said, I'm sitting outside like an animal. But I know one day I'll find it because here it's the land of opportunity. It's America. A lot of people have made it, but it's hard to make it too. And I know that, but I also know that I can have it quicker than what other people think. You know, the fun part, the money. We're gonna find all that stuff. Oh, and I'm looking good doing shit too. The best I can look. The best I can look right now. For everybody out there watching, hopefully you have a good day too. Today is my birthday. Wish me, blessings and happy birthday wishes and all that good shit. And I'll make more videos on my other channel too. So I don't get discouraged or anything like that, because this shit keeps me going on this journey. If I didn't have this, I would be like, what the fuck? And I like to say this: we're living in an age where things is all on the internet, right? If people are watching your dick already, or you have knowledge that people just can't stay the fuck away from looking at your dick or your balls, right? And like you know that people have an innate ability to do shit like this, right? You might as well just put yourself out there and show everything, because you know what is there to lose? They're already watching your dick anyways. you know might as well put it out there like, hey, I'm doing this, and this is what I'm doing. I'm in Santa Monica and I'm enjoying my birthday the best I can. I ain't gonna let some fucking bitch, weak ass man fucking play games with me. Weak ass, real bitch play games with me. She can play games with my dick. That guy, me and him can talk and figure some things out to get me the fuck out of my situation. But if they ain't trying to do that, then hey, I'm not fucking with it. We ain't pushing nothing there. Just the same shit. We need money and bitches over here. We are that kind of animal. Sorry. Other people thought of things, heartbroken and other stuff. That's called tough love. I'm a tourist, so that's what that does. I am not cool in that chocolate. Now I can be, and I actually am being cool by talking to you. But you play games with my cock too much. Don't do that if you're a guy. You know, Female, you gotta play games with my cock right. You need to be here on my dick. That's just simple, and that's how it has to be. Happy birthday to me, and you guys, have a good day. That's all I can say. Oh shit. And keep doing as you do. Just don't stop the fucking, process over here, or anybody else who's trying to, do better for themselves.